get started, you can always feel free to get up and get some pizza in the back. My name is Luca and I work for CeLTA, and I'm here to introduce Carly and Erica. Before we get started, a couple of logistical announcements. There's a sign-in sheet which I will be passing around. If you've signed already, great. If you haven't, we're out of room, but you can use the back. So
it's important that you sign this because then we send in the numbers and they make sure that we have enough pizza all the time.
Yes. So if you should not sign in next time there's no pizza, it's your fault.
Yeah. Extra pizza, it's your fault.
Second, at the end, I'll be passing around evaluation forms. I'll tell you a little bit more about those later. But we really appreciate your feedback. So make sure you stick around for those. And I will be turning it over to Carly and Erica.
Okay. Well, I'm Carly. I am a PhD candidate now, writing my dissertation, but I work for full-time for Michigan Virtual as their German subject matter expert.
And I'm Erica. I completed my master's here in French in 2014, and I am the French version of Carly at Michigan Virtual, so I work on the French course.
Yeah, we always tell them that we're a package deal. You gotta keep us both or just leave it. Okay. So today we're going to sort of go through what we've done in building these courses, the process. We want this to, feel free to have this be a conversation. If you have questions or we say something that you're like, what in the world does that thing mean? Please stop us, let us know. We don't want this to just be us talking at you. And feel free to get up and get more pizza or whatever. Don't feel like you're being rude. Get pizza. So we're going to start and talk about what in the world is Michigan Virtual. I think that's sort of a thing that eludes a lot of people of what are these online high school things, what's that about? We'll move on to sort of the core beliefs of the World Languages Department at Michigan Virtual that really served as the foundation for these courses. What do they believe? What researchers is kind of based on their thoughts. Then we'll talk about our courses specifically, and then du bist dran. It's your turn. We have some links. I don't speak any French, so don't be fooled by my flawless accent. We have some links we're going to send you guys. You can choose which course you kind of want to peek around in. We both picked lessons that we kind of liked for you just to kind of click around, see what types of activities we built, find my grammar mistakes, those types of things. So, great. Sure. So, Michigan Virtual it's an education nonprofit. We are not our own high school. That's a common misconception. I think people think of Michigan Virtual Charter Academy. That's not us. That's something separate. Michigan Virtual is partially funded through the state or largely funded through the state. We build courses for students, obviously, and for teachers, so continuing education credits. There's a lot of free online stuff, and we also send people all over the state to do in-services with teachers and professional development. So that's sort of Michigan Virtual in a nutshell. This is something that took us a while sort of to get our heads around to who are we building these courses for. Students take our classes all over Michigan as a way to sort of supplement the curricula or the courses that are available in their own high schools as well. So as you can imagine, today's world language environment is getting pretty sad, and there aren't as many German teachers and French, well, especially not as many German teachers, but lots of schools that are sort of phasing out language programs, and that's what we're here for, is to supplement that. All of our courses are taught by certified teachers, highly qualified teachers. And our goal is just to get those courses out there to these kids so that they're still learning German, they're still learning French. So it's also part of the Michigan requirements for graduation, so they learn a language.
Sure. So a little bit about our development process. We kind of simplified it into 3 main phases. The first phase is sort of a scope and sequence type of thing. And this is where some of this happened before Carly and I came onto the project, just where decisions were made about what's the overall theme of the course, how many semesters are we going to want to create, what sort of standards are we aligning to. But then where we come in is we started to really brainstorm and think, how are we going to teach this? What is all going to be contained in the 4 semesters? And then we move into the next phase, which is kind of creating a course map and an outline. So while before it was very kind of big picture, now we're starting to get sort of into more of the details as to what's going to be in each unit, even breaking it further down into lessons. And then the final step is scripting and building. And so Carly and I will sit down and we write everything that the students will end up interacting with in the course. So that would be from the copy that they read on the page as they're clicking through, to the practice activities that they engage in, to the quizzes and the assessments, any projects. We write the rubrics, everything that is involved in the course. So that's the bulk of our work. And then we have instructional designers that we work with. So basically we do the writing and they do the building. We write it all up, get it all ready to go, and they take it and they build the course based on what we have written. And along with that, in the process, we each work with a world language teacher who helps contribute with ideas, gives us feedback, does proofreading of what we write and everything like that.
Yeah, so it's a well-rounded team, a lot of different people approaching the project from a lot of perspectives. Okay, so we have some sort of core beliefs that were, sort of ours coming into this project, but also the World Language Department's ideas. So we just want to make sure those are kind of established and out there. Language learning means we need a lot of time and a lot of sustained engagement. So we need to find ways to keep our online students engaged over time with the language, not these one-off activities, but longer sort of projects, things that would make them think about it a little more deeply. We also wanted to make sure that there are clear and realistic goals. And a lot of times students have one perception of how a class should go. And if we don't have those goals up front, and we'll show you how we did that, it can lead to dissatisfaction and confusion, again, especially online where there's not a teacher right in front of you where you can go up and say, I don't understand what you want from me here, I don't know why I'm doing this. We have the goals clear. That really informs our building and then the students' experience as well. Obviously focus, a lot of input, lots and lots of input. And then of course we need students to give us a little output too, so we know how they're doing, how they're progressing. And then we want to make sure that these classes, and also legally they need to be, accessible to students regardless of disability. So we need to make sure that students who are hard of hearing, students who cannot see or are visually impaired, that they can still engage with the material in some way or another. We'll also cover how we talked about that as well. So this is Frau Braun, my fancy little German teacher. So we sort of contrived these little cartoon characters that follow the students throughout. And part of what we do to put these expectations up front is that we have can-do statements. They start the lessons that way, they end the lessons that way. They actually submit a quiz that their teacher will see saying, how do you feel about these things? They're not graded differently if they say that they don't feel comfortable, but just a way for teachers to gauge students and also to help build those skills for students of regulating their own learning. Saying, am I doing okay? Am I not feeling so great about this? And something I really love that we can't see here, but when you click in the course, you can check this out, is if they say, I cannot say what colors I like or dislike yet. When they click that, it gives them, and this is something that we had to script, personalized feedback that says, go back to this specific activity or this specific page, read through that information again. So again, helping them regulate their learning, and there's no synchronous communication with the teacher other than a couple short assessments. So they needed this sort of teacher-y piece, especially in high school, to help them figure out, what am I doing? Where do I go if I'm confused? We have to align to Michigan Department of Education and ACTFL standards. Michigan Department of Education standards are based on an old version of ACTFL, so we had to sort of mitigate those two. How do we make those work? And that's what led us to this choice of, if we see specific can-do statements and map them over the 2 years, we can make sure that we're hitting all the MDE standards, while also giving students a neat, clear package of these are the skills that I have after each lesson, after each unit, after each semester. So yes, ACTFL can-do statements. Do you want to talk a little bit about that approach?
Yeah, so the other big thing that really informed the way that we wrote these courses is taking a communicative approach to teaching the language. So both for Carly and I, this is really important, and fortunately everyone on our team at Michigan Virtual agrees and has been behind us on this. So most of the learning activities that students engage in they're largely input based. They're constantly being exposed to input throughout the whole lesson, right from the very beginning. And the biggest thing is that the focus is always on meaning and meaningful communication. So whether that's listening to something and doing something with that information, answering a question about it, or reading. And then even when there's output and we're asking students to produce the language, it's always based on meaning. And we take the same approach when it comes to grammar. So we do teach grammar in our lessons, but we do so in a meaningful way. We do give them some explicit grammar notes here and there because a lot of students expect that, a lot of teachers expect that, and sometimes it can help a little bit, but we'll give them, it's really just a quick snippet. We don't want to overcomplicate things or make it confusing or make the main focus be on memorizing the grammar rules or memorizing conjugations. So we'll give just a little quick snippet, and then we kind of just let the input do the work throughout the rest of the lesson.
And that's where mapping out these can-do statements, which is what we do sort of in our second phase of what do we want students to do in each lesson. So when we're scripting, I can look back and say, okay, is this activity specifically addressing any of these? Or am I asking students to specifically do any of these things? And if I'm not, then I'm not using meaningful communication for that particular lesson. So it's a really good check and balance in and of its own. And I also, something that I did, so the French and German courses are slightly different. We're different people. The departments also have different styles. I have like a little Einstein icon, and he's super cute. But he'll be like, if you want to know more about, past tense, here's a link. Like, send them somewhere else. Because it's not what we're focusing on here. And even when we sent our course through Quality Matters review, we got some of these comments of, where's the grammar? Where's all the grammar? Well, we're not testing them on the grammar. What I want them to do is the specific thing. So that's what they're seeing our characters do. They're watching videos of native speakers doing that thing. They're listening to audio where that thing is being done. And then they're having a chance to do it themselves. They don't need to know all of the verb conjugations if we only really want them to be able to understand about others and use their own voice. So it is a point of contention among language teachers, and we're not here to debate that, but that's the approach that we're taking and the approach that Michigan Virtual wanted us to take. And it so far is working really well, looking at the student reflections that they're submitting, because we snuck in to see what they were thinking. And students, there wasn't a single student that said they didn't feel like they could do the things that we were asking them to do. So it was a good feeling.
Mm-hmm. We also link to extra resources, but I just don't have an Einstein icon.
Yeah, I mean, you could use Einstein.
Came up
It
with
just wouldn't
that
work.
later, and I was like, I wish I had thought of something like that.
I know. He's the cute little guy. You can see him when you look in the course. So, as we said, accessibility is an important thing, and I'm by no means an accessibility expert, but we had some ways that we addressed this, and somehow this was also a little contentious among the teachers of, they're not really meeting it if they're not listening. Well, if they can't listen because of a disability, you have to give them an alternative. So these are some ways that we did this. Obviously, there's things like subtitles, video transcripts. Every video, every audio, everything has a transcript that was either already on the video or that we wrote. There are alternate activities for every activity that we do, or pretty close to every activity, so that those students, you can't hear what's being said here, read it. That's a valuable skill as well, and we can't expect you to do that if it's something that you're actually not able to do. So that's part of keeping this all, having us meet the standards of accessibility that are required of us. Something else that we did is if we have listening quizzes, so this has a listening component, make sure you have your headphones. The teachers actually have a written quiz alternative for students. We heard a lot, and I've heard a lot before of, we don't need these things because we don't have students with this disability. And I think it might kind of be the other way if we're not having students with these disabilities because we're not making these things known that we have this. It's actually part of the course catalog saying that we have, this is ADA compliant, it's completely accessible to students. So, okay. I love our little characters. They have really elaborate backstories. We have documents where what is Frau Brown's favorite color? I gotta go back and look, you know, just trying to like keep it all.
Family trees.
We need continuity directors, you know, like Doctor Who style, but.
So we actually both use the same or very similar characters between French and German. They just have different names. Carly showed you Frau Braun, but in French that is also Madame Martin.
We cross-reference each other's people, it's fine. It's really cool. So we want to show you a few of the different types of activities that we have, especially things that are in H5P, because it's something that's free. It's totally, h5p.org. Go and like mess around with it a little bit. We'll show you some of the things you can do. Totally free, super easy to use. Most of their activities are accessible as well. So this is a really cool one that Erica built. So
yes, this is a hotspot activity. So one way that we teach vocabulary, most of our vocabulary is taught through flashcards, which you'll get a chance to interact with later.
Those aren't always exciting, let's be real.
Yeah, they can be kind of boring. And so when possible, we've started to include some of these hotspots.
Yeah,
and this was actually built in CourseArc, which is the course authoring tool that you see. But H5P also has a hotspot activity that you can build.
You can add audio. I don't know if people
Un couteau.
So students can listen to the pronunciation, they get that visual sort of connection, so sort of trying to connect them to the vocabulary words using all of their senses to help them remember it a little bit better without it being like, we have the downloadable list because you know that their students are going to want like paper flashcards and I can sit and do this forever, but also letting them do it, it's a little bit more fun. So you can click on all the different types of things, like, oh yeah, now that's the word for stove.
It just takes a minute for the audio to pop up.
Yeah. I think my internet's a little slow because I'm on guest internet, so it takes a minute sometimes. So here's an interpretive listening. This thing is so cool.
Yeah,
like
so
these.
generally in our lessons we try to progress from, we kind of present all the vocabulary, the content that they're learning, and then we move into practice activities. And typically in the practice activities we like to move from more of a basic level where they're just hearing or reading 1 or 2 words at a time. And then it progresses up to something more elaborate and more challenging. So this is an example of a listening activity that's just 1 word or maybe 2.
Il y a un orage.
Oh, it's 1 sentence, not 1 word. And that's kind of a bad audio example.
Yeah, it like echoes between the two, but you can listen to the audio and then find the image.
Yeah.
And then this would be something that would also have an alternate assessment or an alternate activity typically.
So they're listening, and this example said there's a storm or it's storming, so they would select the photo that best represents what they heard.
I don't remember what I picked. It'll be a surprise for me too. Oh, so yeah, we have these characters and we are showing them, this is at the beginning of the course in the first lesson ever, and we want them to pick the things that make sense for what they hear. So my instructional designer's like, I want to throw something in here that will help them see like why this is important. So she created this little storyline. Yeah, so like you need to answer the right thing or it's just going to be confusing. So sort of connecting students to something like, oh yeah, that's weird. So for this one, they can listen to the sentence and they can choose, you know, what's, okay, cool. And then it has the transcript that comes up to help them connect in case they don't get the auditory sort of thing of like, what are the words that are being said to me?
This is, if you scroll down a little bit, so this is an H5P activity. It's called Speak the Words is the name of the activity. So in this particular example, this is a speaking practice or a speaking activity. It's output based. So in this activity, the students have to look at this table, which gives you some information about, here's where our characters come in again. So one of our characters, I think this is about Kate, it's about what she's going to do this weekend. And so they have to look at that table, and then they're prompted down below to record a sentence, so press the record button and say a sentence about what her plans are. And so they can look at the table and, I mean, they don't need to memorize what this pretend character's plans are, but they can look at the table for this information, and you press record and it captures what you're saying. It works in multiple languages. There's a really long list of languages.
And with terrible pronunciation, we get to practice our like really American accents to make sure it will work.
Yeah, so I practice it, I test it out in my best French accent and my worst French accent. And it typically works. Sometimes it doesn't pick up my worst French accent, but
It can be a little fickle. Like we found out the hard way that you can't put periods in the sentences for the correct answers because it breaks the code and then it will tell you you're always wrong. So it's like weird things like that. I know you guys had some trouble with.
it was giving us some trouble because of apostrophes, but
yeah,
it seems that that's been
it can be a little
fixed,
tricky,
so.
and they're pretty good at fixing things like that. But it's also once you record yourself, which I can't do because I don't know any French, it'll come up and say, okay, here are the correct options.
We can see if it will work. I don't know if it will with like the audio hookup and everything. Okay, so this is saying, what's she going to do vendredi? That means Friday. So I'm going to say, elle va aller chez Fatou après l'école. Super. So I recognized what I was saying. It wasn't my best French accent, but it was not my worst French accent.
Kind of in the middle in there.
No, I really do like to test it out at thinking like, how would a first semester French learner say this? And it really does. It's pretty impressive that it captures some pretty hard to understand accents.
Yeah.
Do it with a bad accent.
Do it with a really. Do the next one with a real good American accent.
Have Carly do it.
I couldn't say the whole sentence, so you'd have to write it for me to read it. And
Okay, so
yeah.
samedi, elle va aller chez ses grands-parents pour l'après-midi. See?
So again, the point here of
So
this
what does
activity-
it take for it to give you a 0 on that?
If you say it wrong, basically, or if so it's not pronunciation practice, it's
Damanche.
communication.
Damanche.
Right, so it says no credit.
It's like, no, that's
So
really
click that
And so if
button.
you don't know, like I don't know what this is, it would give me all of the things that Erica decided were logical responses for this particular question. And it can be longer, it can be shorter things. If I'm just like, wie geht's dir? Like, how are you doing? There'll be a list. And there are obviously maybe not all the possibilities in the world here. You can put in a ridiculous number of responses. I've done it.
This one has that.
Yeah, this has a lot of responses, but this is something that's fun, and I try to put in the note of like, if you think your answer's right, and it's not coming up here, like check your vocab list, look at the lesson, maybe there's something going on there, talk to your teacher.
And this is, can I interrupt you? This is on a software platform called H5P.
H5P.
And then what do you do with that after you create it in H5P? Can you?
Yeah, you can get the embed code or a link and share it with people that way.
I see.
Yep.
And just, I'm sorry, a simple question. Is this
Go ahead.
a paid-for software?
No, this
or
is totally free.
And we had a workshop on H5P last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so.
Do we have another one?
Yeah, I'm not an expert. Find
I know where her
Shannon.
office is.
Find Shannon. So it was really important. It's important to us and important to our teachers. Like, we also want students to be able to speak. And maybe this isn't the most spontaneous thing, but it is a way that students can get instant feedback on their speaking. I put, I just scripted a lesson about, going to the grocery store and going shopping. And so I had a picture of the produce section. Like, okay, what things are you going to buy here? What things do you see or something like that? And they can say like, es gibt Tomaten. And like, okay, so there are tomatoes here or whatever. So that they do know, okay, am I speaking all right? Like, am I understandable? It's a machine, so it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. So that's kind of what we're working for.
And I think the most important thing is you can set these up so it's pure pronunciation practice. You can say this word out loud, or you can have it be like direct translation. How do you say green in Spanish?
Which is one of the examples where we're
Yeah.
like, ow, no.
But the way that we've done them is the students are actually sharing real information. So, I mean, it's in a way, it's real communication with a computer, but
Yeah. So it's just sort of trying to find these workarounds of can we give them opportunities to do things. So this is writing practice. Our teacher, one of the specific things that we were told is not to do fill in the blanks because they're nightmares for teachers. Students don't spell things right. They get a million emails. So that's something that they wanted us to avoid. And they do a lot of writing in the class as part of their unit activities, and they turn like larger module projects and course projects. So that's something that we sort of avoided. So this is how we have them sort of think about writing. Okay. So this is all in German, and it's sort of long. Oh yeah, Krishna. I used your name. I try to use a lot of people's names, so I think like everybody's here has shown up at least once. everyone I know at least. So they have these options at the bottom, but the point is they have to understand the text to get it right. They have to understand the text and the context of, you know, what's the correct word or what's the correct thing to say here.
Did you purposely pick food I like?
I did absolutely pick food that you like. So these activities are also easy. You can write a paragraph and you put asterisks around the words that you want to be the options, and then you just paste it in there and it gives you an embed code. It's super easy. This is also H5P. But these are things.
Drag the words.
Drag the word. I don't know, the title's weird to me, but drag the words. And so you can just, I'm that student that's just like, I don't care, I'm gonna just drag words here. If it will let me. There we go. So if you check it, it'll tell you like, okay, this thing's right, and like, that doesn't make sense. And I can keep trying, or I can have it show me the solution of what's supposed to go here. Yeah. So these are just a few of the types of activities. We tried to include a huge variety of things, and we're about halfway through, and I wanted to give you guys sort of the bulk of the time to jump in and like mess around with the things that we've built. So you have a choice here. French lesson 3.1 from the first semester, or I took 12.1. So if you type in the short link, it should take you right to the course arc lesson. We also use Blackboard, and that's where our assessments are housed. But I thought this stuff is way more exciting, way more interesting than the boring, ugly Blackboard shell, which is basically like, they're all the same, D2L, Angel, Blackboard, they're all ugly and hard to use. So yeah, go ahead if you want to like find people around you that are doing the same or a different one and kind of talk about it. These are all, you can use them on a tablet, phone, computer, or Chromebook. We have to make them usable on every platform, so yeah. I'll give you guys some time, I'll wander around.
Is it case sensitive?
I don't think so. I just did that to make it easier to read.
The French one
It might be.
Yeah,
Is it?
Yeah.
That's crap. Okay. Sorry guys, I lied.
The French one was case sensitive.
So it's both as this? Yep, it should be, that should be the lesson that you come to.
So if the German one's not popping up, put the HTTP in front of it.
Why did you do that?
If it's not.
Okay, if it's not, you can add that in, but
Yeah. This is the key. Alright, so.
There it is.
So the audio, a lot of our audio is Amazon Poly, and Erica and her team decided to give it a try with, they hired native speaker actors, which is super cool. So if you have time to pop over to hers and listen to her little video, they're really cool. They're really, really cool.
It's not all the audio, but just the audio
Yeah.
on the lesson intro so they play the voices of our characters.
Yeah, that's what you're gonna I've learned so much doing this, so much.
So this is like an Alexa voice situation.
Yeah, it's Amazon Poly. Yeah, that's why I picked the lesson I did, because the ones at the beginning are a little rough, but the instructional designer that I work with, you can work with voice tags and change the inflection. And so she actually worked through to find out, like, oh, this is what German, she doesn't speak English, so she's like, does this sound like a German question? And so she uses that as an example for her other ones to make them sound, I like them because they're super clear, like crystal clear. It's not. I think like second. It's high school students. For us, you're thinking maybe the second year.
I try to give them some pretty obnoxious
videos.
videos.
Strict all of it.
They're kind of funny.
So they get the same actors, and it takes time to get it back. And Erica's just painting, like getting all of her stuff ready. She found out her actor for her teacher is only available through the end of the week. And all that ready, but I decided we decided just to let them have that experience.
But one of the
I do like party, but not this kind of party. It's like a kindergarten.
Yeah.
Sehr gut, endlich. Hat lange gedauert. So, at this point,
Yeah, I only learned French.
Yeah, and I mean, it's only higher education. So there won't
Let's the students of our courses and see a big spike. Okay. And there are some things that
Are they being?
Yes. Yeah, our first course is already out in the world. It really is like sending your child off to be like a child actor, and like if anyone says something mean, I'll cry. I'm kidding. I'm not that emotionally attached, but it's nerve-wracking to share like all the way down. Yeah. I was just like, it's all like this one high school teacher, which is students who kill me. This is French 1A.
No, the name sounds vaguely
She's like, I have a
familiar.
list of random things that you think. She said, they could the department about how, so like the first module in one is called kids, I would just put it BINS. Like the person who's creating the code, or is technically correct, it's actually, could be considered word for word. She's like, no, that's wrong, you need to change it. Then you really have for PR, nobody's gonna want our German courses, like, if they look at it and it's like a single apostrophe in the wrong place, like they're just not gonna want German courses. They're just like riddles. That's what you maybe get it. But like seriously, like this is weird. This is what you're gonna do. And she didn't like that I used the word lost instead of something like lost is lost. She had like a long word that she wanted to use. Like I want to have it close enough that you know like these are resources. Sometimes they just and it's really what she
I was using a program recently in my microchip, which was confusing. Yeah, kreieren. What could that mean? Create.
Yeah. Are you still in the French yet? I'm so nervous. Look at that. Oh, you're good. You had to teach too.
I took French to read.
Yeah, so how are we doing what we've seen from the students? It's pretty good. Teachers, students, they were like, oh, what about grammar? Like, they're gonna want grammar. And, when students know, like, that takes all the pressure off, I think. You just learn how to say a few sentences. Like, that takes all the pressure. Like, I don't have to know hundreds of verbs for everybody and their brother. And, like it's a few pages, something like specific about
That's just so
yeah, and that's like culture stuff like sometimes
Oh, but mit Deutsch. Ich habe gleich den Servicebereich. Kontakt.
Okay, so school district gives the students the option of doing it. Yeah. And if the students sign up for it, and then there's a level of so when they're talking about
That's actually like the view would actually stop the view and just like maybe the consequences question just like think about this very long video about the soccer coach and I think it's actually the one before. Yeah, before. Of course it's 5 hours. It has to be 5 hours. And it's like such a long video. And there are like so many questions. And he would like do this like an explanation way. I mean, I completely skipped actually what she had to say. Got rid of some students are like do it on their own with practice and then some of it's well, I mean, if they have to get no, but I just told them I'm not doing island, you can buy like a copy of the book for $40 to $60. I do one without good things $60 savings. I mean, none of this against the it gets hard because the students that use conflict. I didn't know that until we'll go to like a college. It's good to know, but it's not necessary. I changed my mind much less low cat. It's not like it's really, especially because the comedy editors are really unnecessary to know. Like Haken. Who cares? Der Haken. You don't even know Der Haken. But like CeLTA is good, Bottom is good. Yeah. Do people even say Bottom
Writing a whole curriculum by yourself.
Yeah, we were saying Bottom. Yeah, comedy Bürste, like all this.
It actually is.
But again, I feel like sorry to
Well, I'm not sure. So there's also Japanese that we built
it's like Chris had an image and you just had to list vocab. I cut it and put some.
I'm not sure about that, but yeah, like I know a lot more.
You know what? I my second year I tried my RA. The second semester.
They are other courses they can go.
Second semester.
They show. I missed it. I missed it. So they showed a couple of stuff.
And it's like, So I've seen different recipes. Overall, I just try to cut it down. I don't want to
They're just so perfectly trained.
Right, and they
Pardon? Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Can I freeze this for a minute? Oh, sorry. They just said they didn't see Einstein, so I'm trying to find his picture. That's all. You can keep working on
Oliver Weird.
There he is. Isn't he so cute? He's a little Einstein icon. He's like not many pixels, so he's tiny, but
I don't know. No, that's just
I know. Maybe I can start to use that now.
I started that as a I think it's
They're so cute. I love it.
okay.
I love that challenge that I did.
So it seems like people are starting to like move on to other topics, so we can kind of come back together. Are there any questions? There were some questions that I thought were interesting out here. If you want.
I do. I'm just wondering about my own daughter, actually. So she's East Lansing High School, and because I started French in 7th grade, she's going to take AP French as a junior, which means her senior year. There's no course.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that, does it go that high?
Well, I can tell you.
Yes.
Currently, we are building 4 semesters. But if you want to start a petition for Michigan Virtual to write
Hire two
all
highly qualified.
4 years worth of French plus AP French, that guarantees me a job for a lot longer. I say yes, let's do it. No, currently we're working on 2 years, so 4 semesters of German and 4 semesters of French. That's, as far as I know, that's all that's planned to be offered right now. But I do think, I think we might have an AP French course that's just through another vendor or another school that Michigan Virtual offers.
Yeah,
But
we're part of
school is mine.
Yeah, we're part of like a collaboration group consortium that trades some courses. So these will be probably offered in other places as well.
Yeah, in other states.
Yeah, that word. States, that's the English. We don't have to know English. No, but there, yes.
I'm a huge H5P fan. I've been using it for a few years, and everyone should try it out. I know that Michigan Virtual has some kind of partnership with H5P. I'm just curious, do you know anything about that?
All I know is that my instructional designer has basically a direct line of this thing isn't working and it's fixed within the day. That's all I know. But I think we also have a little bit of leverage if we want to see this type of activity or we want this thing like to work this way.
You have ideas for
There you go. Yeah, you let me know. You let me know. Yeah, I think they got like some of these things working with audio that we hadn't originally had working that way. I don't know a lot about
Virtual was financially supporting one of the financial supporters of H5P.
Yeah.
That's how I understand it. But
I think you're correct, but I don't know a ton on like the design end. Yeah, and there's a question about like how teaching works, and so basically we have teachers all over the state, and they're teaching students all over the state. So you might be based in Lansing, and you're teaching German students in Sault Ste. Marie and Escanaba and somewhere in the Thumb and all over the place. So it's all online. You're doing a lot of grading. You're doing a lot of reading these assessments that we've created. We didn't get too deep into the assessment stuff but we have them doing a lot of projects of, there's three pieces to this unit, so you're going to go ahead and you're going to answer these questions here, these questions here, these questions here, and at the end, you're going to synthesize it, write something for us, tell us something about your life. So that's what the teachers are looking at primarily.
You may have presented about this, and I
Yeah.
apologize, I couldn't hear
Totally
it.
fine.
Does Michigan Virtual itself, does its own staff internally